You know, some of you are dealing with narcissistic people or toxic people that can't cry, that don't cry, that won't cry. I was one of those guys that never cried. And it's because of a few reasons. There was a time when my dad, we were at, I was probably 10, 11 years old. We were in our living room at a bar. My mother had a bar in the house. And my dad talked to my mom. He said, hey, Sylvia, you know, I got another son. And my mother said, I'll never forget you. She said, well, he can't come here. My brother, who I met years later, was then living in Alabama. My mother said, well, he can't come here. And my father started crying. And I looked at my father, and I looked at my mother, and she looked at my father like she was ashamed of him crying. And she looked at him like, MF, please, what the hell are you crying for? And I knew then that I could never cry in front of a woman. That really affected me. I knew I would never forget that. And another time where we went to a party, my uncle punched my mother in the mouth over an argument. He broke her teeth. And his girlfriend at the time gave my mother a rag to cover her mouth, and she was bleeding. And I don't know where my dad was, but we caught the bus, went home that night. I peed my pants when I saw my mother get hit. I was there. And so I peed on myself, but I saw my mother just cover her mouth and didn't cry. She didn't cry. And I was like, so she saw my dad crying, and she looked at him like, what you crying for? And then she got hit, and she didn't cry, you know? And the third time was when I saw my grandmother. It was Christmas. That's why I hated Christmas. Every time we go something over my grandmother's or they come over our house, something happened, something bad happened. Not every time, but I remember this. My grandmother, I wanted some greens. My grandmother was cooking greens. And so I asked my mother, you know, kind of like, hey, Mom, can we go in the kitchen and get some greens? She, you know, got up. It was a party at the house. Grabbed my hand off the couch, walked in the kitchen, opened up the pot of greens. I saw the smoke coming up. She scooped the greens out, gave me a little sip of those greens. My grandmother came in and slapped my mother, cracked her face. And I felt my mother jumped because I was holding my mother's hand, standing next to her, looking up. And my grandmother cracked. My mother took it. She didn't cry. She just grabbed her jaw and she said, Mama, don't smack me no more. My grandmother said, don't you ever come in my MF kitchen ever again. So this is what I saw growing up as a little boy, why I didn't cry for a very long time, why it was hard for me to cry. And you too may be dealing with somebody that's narcissistic or toxic or doesn't or can't cry, don't cry, won't cry. When things happen, when bad things happen, they just won't express their feelings, their emotions. Probably because they saw their mom get hit and didn't cry, or either their dad or aunt or uncle or somebody. But that's why. So I didn't cry for a very, 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 very long time. I could see things happen in front of me and be like, psh. Yeah. So yeah, I was suppressing my emotions. Just want to give y'all that today. All right, y'all have a great day.